Breaking tonight, Washington's pressure tactics have completely backfired. Canada's new leader just announced $8 billion in defense spending and
while threats and tariffs dominated headlines, Ottawa quietly built alternatives across 3 continents. Energy diversification.
Breaking tonight, the interview that explains everything. Trump tried to pressure Carney. Carney laughed in his face. Not literally, but strategically, it might as well have been. Tensions are escalating across North America right now. Trump deployed tariffs, threats, and inflammatory rhetoric, expecting Canada to fold within weeks. Financial analysts predicted economic capitulation. Washington insiders assumed Carney would scramble to negotiate. They were all utterly incorrect. Calgary, Alberta. Standing before a packed audience, Mark Carney did something that would have been unthinkable for most leaders under pressure. He made them laugh. Before diving into complex policy discussions, before addressing defense spending or AI investment, he opened with self-deprecating humor about undervaluing the humanities. The room erupted. He smiled. And in that single moment, you could see exactly why Trump's pressure tactics have failed completely. Translation: this is a leader so confident in his position that he doesn't need to project strength aggressively. He can be vulnerable, funny, human, and still command absolute authority when the moment demands it. And what happened next in that interview reveals precisely why Canadian sovereignty is accelerating while American leverage collapses. Dear viewers, between the moment that interview began and the moment it ended, something extraordinary unfolded. Not just policy announcements, not just economic projections, but a comprehensive demonstration of strategic leadership under external pressure. The kind of leadership Trump has spent months attempting to influence, only to discover he's engaging with someone who operates with a distinctly different approach and preparation level. Let me walk you through exactly what happened and why it matters so much right now. The interview started with a technical question about applied research funding. Standard stuff. The kind of question politicians usually dodge or answer in vague platitudes. Carney's response? Immediate specificity. Yes, we're increasing funding. Here's exactly how much we're spending on defense. $80 billion. By the end of the decade, toward our 5% NATO commitment. Here's where dual-use applications will focus. AI, critical minerals, decarbonization. Here's the new research agency we're launching, Borealis, modeled after DARPA. And here's the talent program, $1.7 billion to attract the world's top 1,000 researchers and their entire teams to Canada. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just complete command of the details. Now contrast that with Trump's typical approach. Trump's style tends toward bold declarations and headline-grabbing statements, while detailed multi-billion-dollar research strategies with institutional structures and specific timelines appear less frequently in his public communications. Carney positions himself differently, emphasizing preparation, data, and precision. That's why the pressure isn't landing as expected. When one leader focuses on immediate declarations and another builds detailed long-term frameworks, the leverage dynamics shift. Then came the self-aware humor moment. After explaining how research funding would skew toward hard sciences, Carney caught himself. He just inadvertently diminished the humanities and social sciences, the very fields he studied. The room sensed it. He sensed it. And instead of deflecting or moving on, he stopped everything, looked directly at the camera and said, "Can I look in the camera and say how much I value the humanities, the social sciences? This is the future." It was perfect. Self-deprecating without being weak. Confident without being arrogant. Human without losing authority. Trump's brand has historically emphasized strength through unwavering certainty, rarely showing vulnerability or self-correction in the public settings. That rigidity creates a different dynamic when attempting to pressure someone comfortable, acknowledging their own limitations while maintaining authority. It's harder to unsettle a leader who's comfortable in their own skin. But here's where the interview shifted into something more significant, where the substance matched the style. Carney addressed Canada's energy strategy with a clarity that should terrify anyone betting against Canadian independence. He explained the commitment to doubling non-US energy exports, not vague aspirations, concrete targets, 50 million tons of LNG exports by 2030, 100 million tons by 2040. And he explained exactly why diversification isn't optional anymore, because Canada cannot rely on one market regardless of how large that market is. Translation: Trump's pressure strategy may have inadvertently accelerated the exact outcome it aimed to prevent. Canada is systematically reducing American leverage by expanding partnerships with countries that demonstrate respect for sovereignty. The audience asked about critical minerals. Carney didn't just acknowledge their importance. He broke down the strategic calculus. Critical minerals are small in volume but massive in geopolitical value. They unlock broader partnerships with major economies. And Canada isn't just mining them anymore. Canada is bringing processing home instead of relying on China. This represents a different form of strategic thinking than Trump's tariff-focused approach. Trump views tariffs as immediate leverage. Carney frames supply chain diversification as permanent structural advantage. The timeframes and strategic horizons differ fundamentally. Then came the AI discussion, and this is where Carney demonstrated something truly rare among political leaders. Complete honesty about national weaknesses followed immediately by concrete solutions. Canada is excellent at developing AI technology, but terrible at adopting it. Canadian universities train world-class AI talent, and most of them leave for the United States. Adoption rates are in the low 30s when leading countries are above 60%. These are painful admissions. Most politicians would spin them or deflect. Carney stated them directly and then outlined exactly how Canada plans to fix the problem. Productivity super deductions for R&D and data infrastructure, tax incentives for AI adoption, training programs for continuous skill development, a complete cultural shift toward risk-taking and innovation. And do you see the pattern here? Every vulnerability acknowledged, every solution specified, every timeline clarified. Trump has been attempting to exploit Canadian weaknesses for months, but when a leader publicly identifies their own weaknesses and systematically addresses them, traditional pressure tactics lose their effectiveness. The vulnerabilities become transformation opportunities rather than leverage points. The energy superpower section of the interview deserves special attention because it represents the philosophical difference between Trump's worldview and Carney's vision. When someone asked Carney to define energy superpower, he didn't just list resources. He built an entire framework. A military superpower doesn't just have aircraft carriers. It has planes, armies, drones, economic power, and soft power influence. An energy superpower works the same way, not just oil and gas, though Canada has plenty of both, but also one of the cleanest electricity grids in the world at 80% clean power. The ability to double or triple that capacity over 15 years. Advanced clean technology across hydrogen, renewable natural gas, and biogas. And the organizing principle that energy will increasingly be judged on three factors: delivered cost, reliability, and security, and carbon footprint. This is sophisticated systems thinking. This is long-term strategic positioning. This is exactly the kind of leadership that thrives under pressure because it's built on structural advantages rather than temporary leverage. Trump threatened Canada with tariffs expecting immediate economic reactions. Carney responded by accelerating the diversification that reduces those tariffs' long-term impact with each passing month. That's not just managing pressure, that's converting external challenges into strategic momentum. And then Carney did something that connected all the technical policy to human reality. He talked about the trades. He explained that Canada will create hundreds of thousands of careers in skilled trades over the next 25 to 30 years. He outlined how government, unions, and schools will coordinate training programs. He spoke directly to young Canadians about why this is an extraordinary time to enter the trades. This is where leadership becomes tangible, not just GDP projections or export targets, but real careers for real people. The kind of vision that builds national confidence from the ground up. Trump has been trying to undermine Canadian confidence for months, suggesting Canada should become the 51st state, implying Canadian weakness, mocking Canadian sovereignty. And Carney's response has been to systematically build Canadian strength in every sector while remaining completely unbothered by the noise. That's the key insight from this interview. Carney isn't resisting Trump's pressure through confrontation. He's making it irrelevant through competence. Every policy Carney outlined in this interview does double duty. It strengthens Canada economically while reducing American leverage strategically. Defense spending increases Canadian capabilities and meets NATO commitments, making American security guarantees less critical. Energy diversification expands Canadian markets while decreasing dependence on U.S. demand. AI investment and adoption improve productivity while keeping talent in Canada instead of losing it to Silicon Valley. Critical mineral processing creates domestic value chains while reducing reliance on Chinese or American supply routes. This is comprehensive strategic repositioning, and Trump's pressure tactics face significant challenges in disrupting it. Threatening tariffs becomes less effective when the targeted country simultaneously builds structural alternatives to your market, reducing leverage systematically with each passing month. The interview also revealed something about public communication under pressure. Carney could have been defensive. He could have spent the entire session responding to American provocations or explaining why Canada won't be bullied. Instead, he spent 0 seconds on that. He laid out Canadian strategy with such confidence and specificity that American pressure never even entered the conversation. That's mastery. Trump is dominating headlines with threats. Carney is dominating reality with execution. And here's why this matters so much right now. This interview wasn't just a showcase of Carney's intelligence, humor, and policy command, though it was certainly all of those things. It was proof that Trump's entire approach to Canada has failed strategically. Trump assumed economic pressure would force political concessions. Instead, it accelerated economic diversification. Trump assumed mocking Canadian sovereignty would undermine Carney's position. Instead, it strengthened Canadian resolve across party lines. Trump assumed chaos and unpredictability would destabilize Canadian planning. Instead, it clarified Canadian priorities and unified national purpose. Every single pressure tactic appears to have generated unintended consequences, and this interview shows exactly why. When one leader emphasizes dominance through pressure and another emphasizes competence through preparation, the outcomes over extended periods tend to favor methodical execution over spontaneous declarations. This interview will age remarkably well. Years from now, when people analyze how Canada navigated this period of American volatility, they'll point to moments like this. Not dramatic confrontations, not heated exchanges, but calm, detailed, comprehensive articulation of national strategy by a leader who understood exactly what he was doing and exactly where he was going. Trump attempted to pressure Carney. Carney responded with comprehensive policy articulation, outlining $80 billion in defense spending, explaining energy diversification across 3 continents, detailing AI adoption strategies, and inviting an entire generation into skilled trades. That's not just managing external pressure. That's maintaining strategic focus during challenging circumstances. If this is what Canadian leadership looks like when facing American pressure, then the effectiveness of traditional leverage tactics may be declining. And Canadian sovereignty initiatives are gaining momentum beyond initial expectations. The interview wasn't shocking because of any single revelation. It was shocking because it demonstrated comprehensively that Trump's pressure campaign hasn't produced the intended results. Carney continues focusing on execution rather than responding to external pressure. He's prioritizing Canadian structural development. Look, everything I've shown you tonight comes from public data and official reporting. But the conclusions, those are mine. You decide what it means. And if you want to stay ahead of every move in this transformational moment for Canadian sovereignty, if you want the analysis that connects the dots before mainstream media even notices them, then Canada Next is where you need to be. We're not just covering these stories, we're breaking down these strategic shifts that will define the next decade of North American relations. Subscribe to Canada Next and join the community that sees what's coming before it arrives.